Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Players Connection, your podcast that connects parents of autistic children with industry experts and resources. I am your host, Brad Broyles, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host attorney, Nathan Palmer.
You had to add the attorney. I'm trying to leave that behind with the school, but always a pleasure to be here, Brad.
Hey, today is law day.
But we have an attorney.
That's the reason. Yes, today we have another attorney. So I'm getting gained up on two attorneys, folks. It's going to be a rough ride, but I know we can get through this. So today we are joined by Hunter Knight, who is the owner and practicing attorney at Knight Law PLC.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Genuinely, I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you, and we're going to be talking about some things that I know our parents are going to want to know about trust. Not trusting one another, but a document called a trust, right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Some law aspects of working with special needs kids and with your autistic kiddos. So we hope that this is a wonderful resource for all of our parents. Hunter, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you, guys. Genuinely super excited about this and happy to offer anything I can.
See, now I think our parents need a little bit of his background because Hunter's got a unique.
He does. And let's dive into that, Nathan.
Okay,
so let's
dive away.
So first of all, Nathan, let me ask you a question. Do you know where Hunter got his degree from, his bachelor's degree from?
Not without you telling me. I just know Hunter's a good guy.
Well, that's right, folks. He has a bachelor's of art in Russian. How did that happen?
I had the opportunity to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, got called to serve in the Kiev, Ukraine mission, Russian speaking, spent 2 years over in Ukraine, and followed that up with deciding to go full in on Russian, learn it a little bit better, went to Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah, got my Bachelor of Arts in Russian Literature and Language, and ended up taking that back to Moscow with my wife, lived in Moscow for a little bit, worked for a law firm in Moscow, and really tried to become fluent, and which I found out is really hard. You think you know it pretty good until you get into a professional setting and you're expected to speak with fluency.
I didn't know Russia had laws. That's amazing.
The communist regime at its finest. No, it was a really, really cool experience and really helped to advance my education, jumping into the law with and going to law school from that degree.
Well, so did you go to law? So you graduated from law school and then you went to Moscow.
Yep.
Is that right?
No, I graduated with my bachelor's and I was actually studying for the LSAT.
Okay.
And got an opportunity with a law firm doing translation for them. So nothing specifically like practicing in Russia, but mostly working with their UK department in kind of cross-border relations through translation.
Wow. So were you in the city of Moscow?
I mean, lived on the Red Line. It was really, really cool.
That's awesome. Well, that's a separate podcast, Nate.
When you say deep dive, you weren't kidding.
No, that was pretty heavy right off the gate. So let's go back to other things. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you got out of the Iron Curtain and you're back in America. So you also earned your Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Nebraska. Now, I hear there's an interesting story why you chose the University of Nebraska.
There is. Do you want me to touch on it?
Yes. I heard that has something to do with a golf ball in Utah. Yep. How did that work?
So in short, I was applying to law schools and really had my eyes set on ASU and University of Utah. Kind of stay close. My wife's from Utah, my family's from Arizona, and I really wanted to find something that fit both families' needs, and both of them were really great schools, had great programs. I was always told, apply to a school that you were going to get into and get a good ride to. I met this at one of the law school fairs, met a kid that was from BYU that was sent from the law school to just talk about how great Nebraska was. And I said, this is the school I'm going to apply to as my kind of middle tier school. It was a top 45 at the time, and just decided that's where I'm going to apply to get a good scholarship to use that as a competitive advantage with ASU and U of U. And I was playing a golf on a course in Draper, Utah. I hit a really pretty decent shot, but it rolled it was a dogleg left. It rolled straight out the back into a bunch of brush. Went into the brush to pull out a ball, and from Draper, Utah, South Mountain course, I yanked out a ball with a big red N on it. And I called my wife and said, "Hey, I just pulled a ball in Draper, Utah with the Nebraska N on it that said Nebraska Cornhuskers. We need to go to Nebraska." And within a week span,
And your wife's still married to you. She's
I know.
okay
Still
with
married.
See, my wife would say the N means no.
yeah. She ended up applying for a job there. She got a job there out of school. We actually were in the car, fully loaded U-Haul, just outside of Wyoming, and we got a call from the University of Utah that said, "You got a full ride with us if you want to come here."
Wow.
I called my wife, who was driving behind me, and I said, "Should we turn this thing around? Like, should we go back to Utah? Are we making a mistake?" And she was the one that said, "No, Hunter, you felt good about it. Like, let's go with the impression that we had." And we went out there, and it's been one of the best blessings for us long term. And it's been really cool to see how much of my clientele in the estate world comes from the Midwest, and how many connections I have from South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa. So it's been really cool.
Wow, that's neat. Well, right, the heart of America, baby. Well,
Yeah,
that is cool.
Corn and football. That's what it's about.
I had a football coach that was from Nebraska, and he always told the joke, what does the N of Nebraska stands for? You ever heard of this? Stands for knowledge.
Oh, yeah, that sounds
That's to all my Cornhusker fans.
All right,
I'm
before
sorry.
we lose too much credibility, let's keep going.
So anyway, and then talk about you're also an entrepreneur. It sounds like you guys started up a beverage company with you and your wife.
Me and my wife were very excited about it. About a year ago, we decided to do a joint venture together. We are launching a reduced caffeine energy drink called Comic Energy. We have a really cool crew that we have kind of pieced together, and our marketing design team is the producers of Prime Energy and Ghost Energy, if you're familiar with either of those. Our marketing specialist is the lead developer behind the brands of Manscaped, Built, t-shirts. And so we're super excited about the team. We're expecting the product to be live Q1 of 2026.
Oh, wow.
So
well,
it's
that's
been a long time coming. It's been the recipe process. The FDA approvals has been tough, but we definitely love entrepreneurship at its finest, and are just kind of taking some free time to do that.
Well, that's exciting. And all this, you're doing all these great stuff, and then you're also helping families with trust and documents, legal. So tell me about your legal profession. Like, what do you guys focus on?
Great question. So our firm is focused on estate planning, estate administration, which typically to the average person is we create wills and trusts for people. We create them for normal families. We create them for families with unique situations. We create these documents to instill security, protection, and assurances moving forwards that if there was a tragic situation that happened, that there would be something in place for parents, for kids, for family members. And then we also assist families with the administration of those documents, which we sometimes refer to as probate if it's through the court system. Sometimes we refer to it as a trust fund, if you will, some type of this legal document that's going to preserve their assets and hopefully assist these people and our clients and our families with their long-term planning needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and folks, I know the legal jargon can get a little bit sleepy on us sometimes, so we'll try to make it as, I guess, insightful as possible. So let's just kind of dive in real quick. Tell us, because this is very important for families. I guess let me ask you this. Why is this important for families that have special needs kids?
Specifically with special needs, we're looking at these families that need assistance, that don't really know where to go, don't really understand the complexities with whether it's long-term planning, whether it's all-tech, whether it's just governmental assistance that might be awarded to them or provided to them. And a lot of these families come from affluent needs, like they have great jobs, they work hard, and their kids are going to need some type of a protection for them long-term, especially in the worst-case scenario that an auto accident happens or some type of a catastrophe that leaves the parents unable to care for the child, and the child is susceptible to the potential guardians that are going to take over for them that might not have the fiscal ability to care for them. And so we're looking for these life insurance policies that will pay out to be placed into these, what we're going to call them trusts for right now, but to be placed into the entities or these structures that will care for the children into the long-term future, so that there's no immediate burden on others to care for them.
So then a simple way to say is this is a way or a plan to take care of your kiddo after you die, right? Or that you're not able to take care of your child anymore. That has special
and
needs.
it certainly could be. There are a lot of options for parents to look into now. To take care of their kids or to get additional assistance or to use their income and plan for their children's future now, kind of like a 529 plan, for educational purpose.
I think we'll diagram a lot of these out in some basic level. Really, I guess the key is that there are things you can do to prepare for the support of your children when they become adults.
Absolutely.
And that's the concern of parents is, all of us hope, the number one thing, maybe I'm saying it selfishly as a parent, but I want to know my kid's going to be okay and taken care of.
Yeah.
And there's the worst case scenario of that, which is I'm not here. And so what happens? But there's also I am here, but eventually he becomes an adult. And so there's a point where I might want to intervene, but he's his own adult. And so are there things I can put in place to help with that care? And that's kind of where I think a lot of the interest from our listeners is going to come from of what does that look like? What are those things called? And just helping us understand at a 30,000 foot level, what's the landscape look like for that kind of planning? So
absolutely. So let's dive into that. So you have a child that's special needs.
Yes.
Okay? Doesn't matter. Autistic, doesn't matter. So we're just going to go special needs for now. He or she turns 18. Legally, they're an adult. What documentations or paperwork would you recommend for parents that have adult special needs children?
I'm gonna respond with addressing it as kind of a loaded question. What we're really looking for from a first part is, does the individual themselves have their own document set up for their care? Because one of the things, I'm going to use the analogy of an airplane. When you're in your airplane and the oxygen drops, you're supposed to take care of yourself first before you take care of your child. And so we're looking for the parents to have documents set up for them first so that they have something in place where if they become incapacitated, if they end up passing away, that we have some of the testamentary documents, or what we'll call like a last will and testament, with guardianship provisions for these children so that we first know what is the intent of the parents for the children. Special needs is also kind of a loaded word because at the end of the day, although we're talking about maybe children with autism or whether it's a Down syndrome or something like that, we also have children that just have general special needs that maybe they're not fiscally responsible. And so we want to look at the parents and say, what plan, what documents do you need? What is the estate planning document? So we're talking about last wills and testament. We're talking about powers of attorney. We're talking about what we're going to refer to as revocable trust or living trusts or family trusts, so that we have these documents in place. And then the extension of that, I believe, is where we're going to kind of get into a little bit further, which is how do I take those documents and add provisions to them that will take care of my children under this precept that they have a special need that we're going to support them for their life.
So you're saying step one, hey, mom and dad, you need to take care of your stuff first.
I would absolutely, absolutely. We should be looking at ourselves.
And that can be done through a will and trust, power of attorney, a will, and then there's a trust. So what's the difference between a will and a trust?
So awesome question. Yeah, awesome question. A last will and testament, I'm always going to refer to as a probate document to govern my probate estate.
Okay, now back up. What's probate?
In short, probate is this idea that I am a deceased person and my assets are held in my deceased name. And so the court gets involved to say who is my executor and who should be appointed to distribute my assets. So in short, probate is the court of law that governs our estates. And if we pass away, we look for the last will and testament to govern your estate so we know what to do with it.
Okay.
I get to be the layperson's attorney.
Yeah.
We
have two attorneys here, guys. Hold on.
And the way I've always understood it comes down to timing. So with the will, probate is, okay, somebody passed away and they have all this stuff. We just need to know who does the stuff belong to legally, and probate helps to determine that.
Okay.
There's other ways to, in advance, tell the state who these things belong to, which he's going to get to in a second. But basically a will, you die, you have the stuff, we distribute the stuff, end of the will. It's over. It's just everything gets transferred once you die, and that's it.
Yeah, and we're looking to the will to say, here's my wishes. This is what I wanted to happen.
Okay.
Now a trust is similar to a will in the fact that it also says, here's what I want to have happen, but we're looking at a trust to be the outside the court document. So rather than doing it through the through Maricopa County or whatever the county of domicile is, we're looking for the trust to say, we have these assets and we are going to dispose of them or distribute them without the court's involvement, because we have this separate document that allows us to do that.
Right. Now, the way I understand a trust, does it work kind of like an entity, like almost like
an LLC,
almost like a business, right?
I think that's a really great analogy for most people, is to understand that a trust is a stack of legal papers, but it's more than that. It is a holding cell of what you put into the trust. So in short, if I have a trust called the Hunter Knight Trust and I have a home, I can have my trust own the home. Okay. And then I can tell my trust, when Hunter Knight dies, the house goes to so-and-so, or it's to be sold and divided, or it's held for a special needs child. And again, we'll get into that a little bit.
Wow. Okay. So easy way to think about it. Will is, hey, this is my will and last will and testimony. This is what I want my stuff to go to. Trust is more of kind of a living document that survives death, that can kind of rule of how I want to, like, who's going to take over my assets, who takes over my stuff, and what I want, or who's going to be like the so-called executor. Can you tell us a little bit more, like, what's an executor of a trust?
Yeah. So that's a really nice summary. In short, just to make sure that we're clear on that, the will and the trust are very similar in that they distribute assets. The will goes to the court. The trust doesn't. The executor is a very common terminology. And so depending on where the listener is listening from, we might call them an executor. We might call them a personal representative. So it's just all legal jargon. A lot of the times with my clients, I like to refer to that person as an administrator, the person that administers, whether it's through probate, whether it's through a trust. We have this person that's appointed, and their role is to abide by the law that I'm setting up as the creator of the document. So if I were to set up a trust for my family and I appoint somebody as my administrator, I'm looking for that person to abide by what the terms are of the document that I put forth. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating so far. I mean, that's a lot to unravel right now. So you would say step one, hey, parents come in, and I guess which one is better, a will or a trust, or is that just determined on the person's situation?
I think a lot of the times it depends on the personal situation. There's a divide in the legal hemisphere where,
oh no, attorneys don't agree.
where we like to sell trust, because a lot of the times that means big bucks, right? So there's a salesmanship side to it that we don't always love to see. We're pretty clear at my law firm that that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is, what are your needs, and then what document is the clearest to accomplishing that. With a trust and with a will, we would argue that a trust is a better tool. And when we're speaking to a group of people that are looking more in the inside of, I have a child that might need further assistance, a will is a terrible way to administer our estates for them.
Okay.
It's going to instill a vested, like this interest that connects immediately, where I pass and they're entitled to it immediately. There's no ability to withhold to protect their long-term care. There's no ability to protect them from governmental assistance that might cause the asset or the distribution of inheritance to what we'll call accountable resource. If that's is that a familiar term for everybody?
It is,
in this
and
world?
I think basically what you're saying is the will executes, and when you die, you process the will and it's over. A trust can survive your death, and it can continue to carry out your wishes longer term through this administrator, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great way
and it happens without the need and the involvement of a court. So it's a little more private and personal. Sounds like it has a little more flexibility. And to your point, and this isn't a salesmanship of one or the other, but I think it's good even for the listeners to know, a lot of times you hear trust and you go, oh, well, that's like some tax tool for the rich and famous. It's not the case. It's a planning tool, right?
It is an absolute planning tool. And I think you hit it on the nail. A trust should not be allocated with the old terminology of, I'm a trust fund baby.
Right.
It's not that. And whether it used to be historically identified as a trust fund, this rich person that inherited and they're going to be taken care of forever, a trust should now be really looked at as a tool to care for our children for their long-term care.
And then what I'm hearing then as a dad of an autistic kid is, hey, if you are proactive, and should the worst happen and you and your spouse pass away, there is this thing that can continue to govern your wishes and continue to care for your child in an appropriate way with your, plans in mind to care for them long term, even after you're gone.
Absolutely.
Well, and in that way, we can have our autistic kids be trust fund babies. So that
In a different sense of the word, yeah.
In a different sense of the word, I think that is a really simple way of putting it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I like this. So the accountable. So then where do we go from there? So once we set up a trust, if I was going to go set up a trust, how do I know what to do? Like, what questions should I be asking? How do I know that my child is going to get the care and needs that they need long term?
Well, can I switch it just a little bit? Because I think that's going to change person to person. But really what might be helpful for our listeners is, what are some things I can accomplish with a trust in regards to caring for my special needs child? Like, what are some of the things I can do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me see if I can kind of come up with a very basic example and something that probably would be applicable to a lot of our listeners. The average median family, and let's say they own a house that's worth $350,000. Let's say after the long-term care and planning, the family's paid off the home and we now have $350,000 in liquid assets. The mom and dad have passed away. They left 3 children, and they did this planning with the idea that while they were alive, they were caring for their child, right? The child that needed to continue to live with mom and dad into their 20s and 30s and 40s. And when mom and dad pass, we look to a trusted individual that we've kind of referred to as this administrator, this trustee, to step into the role of mom and dad's shoes and read the trust document for those provisions. To kind of decipher this further, let's say when 2 examples, mom and dad do have a substantial estate and want to divide things equally, 1/3 to child 1, 1/3 to child 2, and then 1/3 to this special needs child. The trustee could divide the estate in thirds. So we now have $100,000 from the sale of that house in 3 pots. The 2 children get theirs outright. They don't no longer have to rely upon the trust. It's not a long-term tool for them. But that 3rd child now has this pot of $100,000 that is not considered what we call accountable resource. And accountable resource is this idea that when we have to go to report to the state about what income that child has or what assets that child has, that child now has a separate fund that can be supplemental to the resources they're getting from the government.
Okay.
So now that child that might need...
So it's not reported.
So it becomes this
private... part of your tax return.
Yeah, it becomes this private separate trust fund, right? This slush fund for this child that now might have a wheelchair and their van's breaking and we need to get a new van for them that the government can't provide. Or we want to send them on a sports camp and again, they want to go do this activity where the government can't provide that. But this non-countable resource has the ability to pay for those things so that this child fulfills their life to what we as a parent want for our kids.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool for that.
And it could be money, it could be assets, like a home that could be in a trust. Child can live there with some type of caretaker.
You could have education directives. So it's the parents can put those wishes and know that somebody has to follow that plan to continue caring for the child.
Correct.
Cool.
And I think I would love to get there on that point, which is, so who do you name as a trustee? Who do you name as this administrator? Because that is one of the most complicated questions that I have my conversations with clients is there is an assumption in families that my child will take care of their brother or sister, and it doesn't always happen. The burden from a parent to a child to care for their sibling that might have a special need is a very large burden that might not be pre-negotiated. And sometimes parents don't even have those conversations with their children. And that makes things very, very tough and difficult. Yeah. And so one of the things in planning when our listeners sit down and talk with their attorneys or get guidance is really to have that one-on-one heart conversation with their next of kin and who they're expecting to fulfill these wishes. I always recommend that they go seek potential professional advice from what we'll call private fiduciaries. And again, in short, that's just a professional whose job is to administer these trusts for children. They abide in compliance. They do get paid for their work. but they fulfill the needs of these kids from a professional
Wait,
standpoint.
hold on. So you're saying there's another like layer to that, like you call it a professional fiduciary?
Yeah.
And that is somebody that enforces the trust? If a
Definitely.
sibling, let's say if a sibling can't do it,
Definitely.
can't help out your brother or sister that has special needs, then you can go to another third party, a fiduciary, professional.
Private or a professional fiduciary.
There you go. And they would do that. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's a great resource. I mean, it's just one more thing. And you help to provide those resources.
Connections, referrals, and I have some pretty open conversations too. And again, kind of back to what Nathan had said, there are sometimes just families that need that guidance because every family situation is so drastically different. Mm-hmm. And because a trust is a private document, it's not governed by the court, right? The court is not involved in seeing accountings. The court's not involved in seeing these things where there is sometimes mismanagement, right? And that's something that a lot of people will not address and talk about is when you tell me, hey, Hunter, here's $1 million in a life insurance policy, and you need to care for, I'm going to call him Brian, and Brian has autism. If I don't have to account to somebody because I'm Brian's guardian, but I also hold the full money, like the entire amount of funds available for my use, right, even though it might not be, it's strictly for Brian, we see often families that do mismanage funds. And those are very tragic situations. And so it always is good to have that conversation with your clients to say, hey, who are you appointing? What does their fiscal life look like? How have they done for themselves? Because money is, in essence, the root of all evil. There's so much about money that ruins people. And unfortunately, I see enough of that side to the world with people that mismanage money as a trustee that I do like to have those conversations with clients so that they have a good understanding of what are their duties, what are going to be their responsibilities.
Is it always money the biggest concern of taking care of special needs in these regards of trust, or is there other stuff that you worry about as well?
That's a really good question and a very thought-provoking question. Money is always going to be an issue because either you don't have enough of it, right? Or you have enough of it that we're asking about.
Too much.
You almost have too much, right? And then you're saying, well, do we really need to hold all of this for the child? What was the intention of the creator of the document?
Can we go to Hawaii right now?
Yeah, exactly. Should we start going to Disneyland every other week and just spending it? There's a lot of other considerations, which is longevity. Right? If I appoint you as my trustee for my child, can I have assurances that you're going to survive that child and take care of them for the full fruition of the administration?
Okay, now I'm going to take 2 steps back real quick because no, apologize. But for parents listening, sometimes this sounds like there's too many choices, and now I don't know what I want from the menu anymore. So just to be clear, in your role, Hunter, do you help them navigate through, do you help them through that course of, let me help you identify the needs, let me coach you through, and here are the relevant options so that they're not just overwhelmed with, because we're already overwhelmed. Yeah. Right. And the last thing we want is somebody that's going to make our life more complicated. So do you guide them through that, or does somebody else have to guide them through?
We guide them through that.
Cool. Okay.
And I would hope that any other firm that they would go to that has exposure and experience in special needs planning would offer that same guidance and really pull into all of the roots and the potential misfaults and mishappens that do occur so that the family can go into the situation feeling very confident. The follow-up to that is consistent planning. Doing it in 2025 does not mean it's going to be good in 2030. And continually reviewing your plan and having your own personal knowledge. One of the things that we emphasize, especially at my firm, and I know other firms do too, but is education. Unlike the pharmacy world or the medical world where I go to you and I say, my stomach hurts, what should I do? And you say, here's some Tylenol or here's some medicine. I don't usually follow that up with, can you tell me the chemistry behind that medicine?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? But in our world, if I say, here's a trust, this is your prescription, I need to also say, and this is how it works. This is how it's built. These are the components that are working, because we want you to be educated and not just a prescriber that you believe everything's perfect because we said here it was in 2025.
Sure. And then let's revisit to make sure it's still doing the things that it's designed to do, or how the needs change in the situations. Gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, It's good to know. So because because you're an attorney and it feels like every time you speak, I have to pay you, you know, it's
the invoice is at the end.
So the question that always comes into people's minds, I would assume, is cost.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, I want to take care of my kid.
Yeah.
I love my kid. But, you know, we got to be sensitive to the wallet a little bit. So what would be a proper expectation? If I come to you and say, hey, you know, I need, you know, I have a child that has special needs. I feel like trust is a good option for my family. We do our little interview, whatnot. What would be like, from start to finish, what would I expect and how much would it cost in general?
And I'm sure that varies, Hunter.
It does vary. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer it solely from my perspective, from my firm.
Sure.
I recently
I can just go to like LegalZoom.
Yeah.
Right? I can do LegalZoom way.
I think online through like a LegalZoom or a Rocket Lawyer, you probably should expect to pay $500 or $600 for this form template that it's going to pump out to you. I caution people from that pretty often. I had a case that someone did that and they checked the wrong boxes because they didn't even know how to answer the questions that it was asking them. And it produced them this complicated, irrevocable trust that they couldn't even change as the owners of it. And so we had to go to the court and have a full what we'll call an amendment to that trust through a court order. Okay. And they spent about $10,000 in trying to litigate over fixing it.
So fixing a $500 expense costed
a lot of money.
So it was a $10,000,
a trust.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But if we come to you,
if we start first with
it
just
might come back in
planning.
Russian.
It could come back with some Russian. But in the bare minimum, we typically charge about $2,200 for a joint marital trust. Okay. That's my firm's quoted price for, hey, a wife and a husband are coming in to sit down to do their planning with their powers of attorney. And as part of that, we're going to build in a special needs provision. My firm does not charge additional. And there are a lot of, I'm going to call them wolf firms that love to pry on people's ignorance. Yeah. Okay. And they sell you up that, you have a child with autism. We're going to have to build in a special needs trust. And they sell this SNT, this special needs trust, as a complicated, overtly restrictive document that they're going to need to charge $3,000 to $5,000 for.
So it's almost like an Olive Cart. Like, it's going to be this much. Oh, you want this provision? Yeah. Oh, we're going to add a house estate. Oh, we got to do a life estate. Okay. So is it kind of like that?
It's like Denali on your truck, right? It's the same truck, but if I put the badge on there, all of a sudden it's $25,000 more. So
gotcha.
Kind of that similar process. There are firms in the Valley that charge $3,000 to $5,000 routinely for joint marital trusts. My firm has a focus on administrative work, so we do make our money in other avenues and not solely just off the sale of the product. And so a lot of ours is a residual or a referral-based system where we have a client that reaches out to us, like Nathan, who's been a great friend and a great partner through referral sources over the years, that will reach out to me and say, hey, this is a family coming to you. And it's, hey, absolutely free consult because I know this family needs something, right? This family is going to need something. And I know that I can help them. And so establishing trust and establishing that I'm going to listen to them and see what their needs are and then be able to fulfill those for a price that they probably can't go get anywhere else on a professional level. Well, so yeah, I hope that answers the question.
It gives a good idea at least. And if nothing else, an expectation of comparing and knowing where it should be at the very least.
Well, like what advice would you give? So we're in Mesa, Arizona right now. So, you're really close. It's easy to call you up and say, hey, bring it over. But what about our families that live out of state or live not close to this area and they're thinking about doing a trust for their autistic child or their special needs child? What advice would you give them to kind of screen out the right attorney that would help their family not only protect their assets, and which is the most valuable asset is their child, but also, we want to do it at the right price. We want to make sure they're working with good people. What advice would you give those families?
I love Google reviews. And I know that's such a tacky response.
I'm going to chat GBT this.
Yeah, seriously. I believe in the referral-based system. So my first step is always to ask my family and friends, do you know somebody that you've gone to that's had a good experience with a special needs trust? And so if there's a listener from Ohio or Florida or whatever state you're in or whatever city, if you're up in Heber Overgaard, one of the best stops is to ask, do I know somebody? And, within our communities, oftentimes we have other people. If I have a special needs child, I likely know other parents with special needs children. Yeah. So my first stop would be, have you guys worked with anyone, and did you have a good experience? The second one is, if they don't have that avenue, check online, specifically search for an estate planning attorney that does special needs trusts, and call the firm. And if there's maybe a firm close by you that doesn't promote them, like our firm does not promote special needs trust. It's not something that we go out and say, this is our focus. Like, we only do special needs trusts. But I do have probably 3 to 4 calls a month from people that say, hey, we got your name from somebody because you did a special needs trust for them. Or I had actually a call Monday this week, and the lady said, hey, I'm looking for an estate planning attorney that does special needs trusts. And, for my firm, my associate answered the call. He put it on hold and said, hey, there's a woman that needs a special needs trust, and he knows those always come to me. And so I bumped on the line with her, and I just said, absolutely. I told her a little bit about my family with some of my family members that have special needs, told her a lot about some of the clients that we've worked with, where our niche is, and just set up a free consult for her to come in. So first of all, referrals. Second of all, poke around and see if you can find somebody that does that.
Yeah. Well, that's what's kind of nice about the autistic community. It is small.
Yeah.
And families want to help each other so much, and they do provide those resources.
Yeah. And the second we can find answers and help, I mean, it's like the floodgates open, because that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to veer off for just a second, because Please. Way back when you threw out a whole bunch of technical terms, and I want to make sure we touch on them just briefly. 2 of them that were prominent were All-Tex, or Arizona Long-Term Care, and a 529 plan. Did I hear that? So tell me a little bit about both of those and experience that you have, or if that's an outside referral, and just educate our listeners a bit.
Yeah, so there's a lot of financial tools. Just in short, All-Tex is Arizona's form of Medicaid. Arizona likes to do different things. We don't like using normal terms.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the Wild Wild West. It's the Southwest out here.
And we're the Americans of the Americans.
We invented charter schools. We invented ESA. Why not invent a different Medicaid system?
We wear bolo ties and cowboy hats. And so All-Tex is more or less a Medicaid system. Long-term care, we need the government to step in to assist us with general support. We're looking for people that have $2,000 or less in assets in order to qualify them. And there are a lot of really great resources for those people.
The trust don't interfere with those limits.
And the trust do not interfere, because there are 2 types of special needs trusts. So let's kind of dive into this.
Okay.
We have
I know how it can't be that easy. Yeah. Leave it to the attorneys.
I know, just complicate it further. There is, we're going to call them first person and third person. A first person special needs trust is where the individual themselves receives a sum of money, and we need to protect it for their care. We're talking about a child that got hit in an accident. So you're driving with your family, your autistic child is involved in the accident, and they receive a large sum settlement.
Gotcha.
That would be a time for us to look at the settlement and create a first person special needs trust so the money can go into it. The second type is this third person trust, which is where me, mom or dad, or brother or sister, or aunt and uncle says, I want to take care of my child, my nephew, my niece with special needs, and I'm going to set up my own trust for them.
To take care of them.
And those are a lot less restrictive. The nice thing is, if there is some type of a settlement or an accident or opportunity to help that child, you absolutely do that. The first thing you should do is go sit down with a qualified attorney to talk about what that looks like, how we can use those funds. The third party where you're doing it, which is probably most of our listeners, right? Like most of the people we're talking about, we're going to talk more about the third party. I'm setting up my plan for my kids. And those are a lot less restrictive. Those are a lot more flexible with these non-countable resource ideas. If I'm going to assist my child with medical equipment, or whether it's travel, the scope is a lot more broad than otherwise. So we have these 2 types of special needs trusts. Within that, I mentioned a 529 plan, which is probably a terrible thing to bring up on a special needs podcast. 529 plan really is a tool for putting away money so that my child can get an education someday with those funds. There is a similar concept in the special needs world we call ABLE accounts. Those ABLE accounts, 2014 act that came about that said we can move a certain amount of money into these accounts that help those special needs children with access to certain things like a 529. So whether the 529 is paying for education, the ABLE accounts are going to help that child with support and getting assistance that they might not otherwise have.
Gotcha. And those are the kinds of plans that if I'm not, and I don't want to overstep, but those are like, not unlike 401ks, you can invest those, have market growth, and they're
Correct.
both a tax deduction for when you put money in and become a resource for the child when they pull it out later.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Housing, education, like they can go to all of those same things. But yeah.
And maybe we do financial planning as another episode one day. I just wanted to follow up so that we're not putting terms on here. We're not also explaining
we're not talking
and,
about. Sure.
But all of that, to your point, still goes into planning, right?
Planning.
Because you can set these up. You still want to make sure that the transfer, should a death happen, you've got these instructions or a trust or whatever form you use to make sure the long-term care of your child is
and especially if we have listeners that are doing really well for themselves, right? Where mom and dad are making great livings. They're having these excess amounts of money that they could be putting towards their kids, again, 529 or ABLE accounts. They should be looking towards a financial advisor that understands these type of plans, these type of accounts, and sitting down with them at a minimum just to get more information about them so that they can say, hey, this is a tool that I could really be utilizing through my LLC, right? That I could be writing off income and putting it towards my kids' care and the long-term planning. And so those are great tools from a very limited scope, without being able to dive too deep into them or to make it too complicated on a podcast. But those would be a great tool to have the parents kind of look into, get some more information on. They certainly could reach out to us on it. But there is a lot of open resources where if you were to get on today and type in ABLE account, you're going to get a lot of just general information to assist you with understanding how those work.
Cool.
Wow. So then going back to the trust, you talked about a third person trust and a first person trust.
Yes.
So if I come and set up a trust, is it automatically we're assuming a third person trust? Do I also do a first person trust too at the same time? So it's kind of like one and the same, or is it two different documents, two different
things? You really probably wouldn't set up a first person trust for your special needs child unless they personally were to come into the money directly. So
it'd be that child himself, he or she would say, hey, I'm getting all this capital for whatever.
Yeah.
And I want my own trust. That's what you're saying.
More of a protective tool.
Protective tool.
And these are limited circumstances, like a car accident, or maybe there was a medical procedure gone wrong and then a settlement. And so the child is owed funds. There's a trust we can set up so that those funds don't just go to the child.
Yeah.
They go into this tool to have some restrictions and some disbursement.
So like if a parent was receiving money from the government to
I'm just saying, like, what's the difference between like third and first? Because I could still do that with a third person trust, right?
So yes, you could do that with a third person. So let's make sure that this is like delineated and makes sense. A first person trust is where the autistic child is entitled to funds.
Sure.
So we're looking at settlement of claims, auto accident, medical malpractice, as Nathan responded to. It could be an inheritance from an uncle that did not do it properly through his third person trust, or like this third person's SNT, special needs trust. And he's leaving it to the child, and it's going to cause interference with that child's benefits.
Sure.
So we're looking to protect those funds into this first person account so that the child,
mom and dad or the guardian would be setting that up anyway.
Mom or dad.
And I guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
Great, great question.
It's not like I guess I'm always about being proactive.
Yeah.
And so that's why third person trust still would work. It sounds like a first person trust is an option, but it's more of an exception than the rule under very interesting circumstances that most people don't fall themselves into.
Yeah. And my advice to anybody listening would be, if your child that is special needs is currently anticipating a settlement, is just had an accident, you just got in a car accident, it would be so smart to start that planning now, because the sooner you get started on getting that trust established, the easier it is to roll those funds into the trust to protect that child. And it's not a rush at the end when the money's now sitting in a check ready to deposit.
Wow. So I've learned a lot, Nathan.
No, seriously. I mean, it's a data dump, and it's interesting. It's nice to know that the resources are there. Again, special needs by itself is overwhelming. And the thought of, listen, I just want my kid to be okay is overwhelming. Yeah. And so we do all these things. We do therapies, we do education, but beyond they turn 18, what next, or should I pass away? What happens? Like, that's just a spot we just don't let ourselves go to, right? It's too scary. So really, Hunter, I'm going to call you, you're like the navigator of the scary, place for us. It's like, let me walk you through your nightmare and turn it into something that's not quite so scary.
Yeah.
And I love that you're talking about education with it, because listen, if our listeners are like me, we're going to walk into it, and I'm an attorney, right? So I even walk into this, or I was an attorney. Can I say just was?
No, you're an attorney. You're an attorney.
I still refer to you as an attorney. So
yeah, you have your JD. I've seen your business card.
So I walk into this and I go, it's even overwhelming for me. So, attorneys have lots of specialties and subspecialties. The reason we wanted to invite you on is to just let parents know there's this world out there, and there is this form of planning to make the future not so scary.
Right.
And for a cost that's doesn't you have to be mega rich. It's not just for the rich and famous, a couple thousand. It's not insubstantial, but for taking care of that, man, I'm okay with the future now, that it's worth everything in the world. So it's just, and if nothing less, just to ask the question, do I need it, and to what extent? It's nice to know there's professionals like you that can help to kind of guide us through that process.
Well, and that was one question. So if you have a child that has special needs, where's the limit where I do need to do this? Or, hey, you know what, this is a little bit overkill. You don't need to have a trust for your child. Like is there a limit at all? Or in your mind, should everybody do this?
I have a skewed opinion. I don't share, I think, the normal opinion, so I'm pretty clear with my clients. I do not believe that inheritance is an entitlement, meaning that just because I'm mom or dad's child does not mean I'm entitled to their money when they die. And so because of that, I caution parents, my special needs clients that are trying to establish their own trust and have these provisions to protect their special needs children, with the idea that there is more of a burden on them if they give their money to their non-special needs kids and they only leave a small amount for the special needs child, or they don't leave anything. Because at the end of the day, most humans with a heart are going to care for their sibling. And it's a lot easier to spend. So I inherit this, I receive this inheritance. I go out and buy my GMC Denali, I buy a cabin, and now I'm cash poor. And now my brother's out of money, and he's living in this really crappy facility, or he's living with me and I can't support him anymore because I don't have the ability to. And so I do like to talk to parents about the idea of, let's leave a good amount. I had a family, and I feel I can't share their names, obviously, but I did a special needs trust for a family recently, and they had 3 kids. The oldest was the special needs child, and the second two, the next 2 in line, they put together as co-executors or co-trustees, and they said, we want you to care for the son. And in the document, we had the conversation with all the other 2 children and said, this is what we're recommending. And we basically just said, I think it was $50,000. It was about a $1.5 million estate. We said, here's $50,000 to the 2 children right up the gate. They got $100,000, and we left still about 1.3, 1.4 in the worst case scenario that these parents pass away. And the rest of the money was this non-countable resource, this trust that could take care of their brother. And it will be the greatest blessing for them, because they don't have a fiscal burden on them personally to care for them. And they have this lump of money that is going to, the principal will get income. They'll be able to take care of him. He'll have the most fantastic life on this additional resource that's offered to him. And at the end of the day, when that special needs child passes, then they inherit what's left. And so the money doesn't just disappear. It's not that they don't get it, but it's primarily for that child. And then when that child does pass, the remaining 2 children will inherit the remainder.
And that's a unique perspective, because instead of just going, hey, it's thirds, what you're doing is saying, well, yeah, but there's, and that's, I'm glad you touched on it, because you never want to say your child's a burden.
No.
But there is this extra degree of work that goes into raising and taking care of special needs. So,
and if I can interject there, my experience, and I don't have a special needs child, but I grew up with a cousin that was Down syndrome, and I watched my aunt and uncle care for my cousin who's my age, and it's a lot of work. And all of her siblings do a lot for her, but only the parent truly knows the full-time burden of what it's like. At least that's my experience.
Sure.
And again, I'm not speaking for any parent listening and their experience, but the true love of a parent, I love my brothers, right? I love my siblings, but not like I love my own kids. The love of a parent for my two children is so far immense outside of any other love I have for a human being. And so from that perspective, the parents, the children will take care of their sibling, hopefully, but there's a different style of burden that we can alleviate.
Yeah, you're letting them enjoy their siblings rather than take care on. Exactly. So that by itself is a level of planning. I'm glad you clarified, because it's not just about, hey, who gets what. It's improving everybody's quality of life with the right kind of planning. So I love the insight.
And it might be a bad example. Again, $1.5 million estate to some people might be so much money. To some, it might not be that much. So again, every case is specific. Every situation is different. Luckily, this family's 2 other children come from affluent living. They do well, so they don't need mom and dad's inheritance either. And they were so supportive of the idea that, hey, we're going to take care of my brother, and we're going to have this entire resource to do so. And if we get money in the end, awesome. Like we're going to be happy. We go buy a boat that year or whatever. But if they outlive their sibling and it goes to their kids, the whole structure is set up so that if the special needs child passes away, it will go to his nieces or nephews, right? Through the airline or through the distribution. So there are so many ways to accomplish what I think most parents are looking to do, and they just don't know where to go, and they haven't ever tried to process it, because sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Well, and so a question that I just thought about is, most families are going to have life insurance, mostly. So if I have a life insurance, I pass away, let's say it's $1 million policy, whatever. So then how do I assure, is it through the will or is it through the trust that I can dictate where I want that $1 million to go to take care of my special needs kid? Like, how's that process work?
You ready for another term?
Oh man, I got my notebook out, brother. So.
We're going to call this a non-probate transfer. And colloquially, what we're talking about is what we call PODs, TODs. Midwest, we're going to call them TODs, transfer on death, so acronym. In the Southwest, Northeast, we're going to call them PODs, payable on death. And so if you've ever gone to Chase Bank and set up an account and your banker says, who do you want to leave as your POD or your beneficiary? Mm-hmm. When you set up your life insurance policy, they likely had you fill out a section called your beneficiary section. And we are going to direct those funds to the trust. So if Hunter Knight has the Hunter Knight Family Revocable Trust and I have $1 million life insurance policy on my head, my policy would say, I am at Hunter Knight's death, it is payable on death to the Hunter Knight Revocable Trust. Okay. Gives me the authority to change that trust while I'm alive. That's important because not every child has the same longevity. Some children have physical issues that their lifespan might be 50 years. And so we want to have the flexibility to change our trust in case we do lose our child, prior to our passing. But those designations help us direct our funds into the trust so that they can be received and then be utilized appropriately.
So it'd be better to transfer to a trust, and then the trust will then dictate how those funds should be used.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I just think there's so many questions.
I think there's a million questions we can ask and a million sub-derivations. Again, the nice thing is there are people out there that can answer the questions. The point of the podcast, and I'm glad we did it the way we did. I mean, it can sound, it can be glossy at some points because this is a lot of data. But what's encouraging is there's a resource and there's a place to get these answers. Like, we don't have to explore every possibility here, but I like that we at least explored enough avenues. We got people thinking, and we got them aware that you can think about this future and it's not quite so scary. There's people that can, like you said, ease the burden, right? In a number of ways. It's not only for the rich.
You don't have to be a billionaire to do this.
And lawyers aren't as bad as we like to make them out.
I like to think we're not.
I don't know. I'm still questioning.
There are a lot, and again, whether you're in Mesa, Arizona, or whether you're in some small town, in New Jersey, there will likely be somebody that is a real person with real experience that understands your needs, and they're going to help your family to the best of their abilities. So,
well, in this area of law specifically, most people hear lawyer and it's okay, courts, and we're fighting.
PI guys, personal injury, settlement, slip and fall.
This isn't. You're not an attorney to fight people. You're an attorney to help people.
Yeah. We're focused. What we do is focused on family. What we do is focused on legacy. What we do is focus on people and relationships, and understanding what is your relationship with your child. What are we trying to accomplish? Because at the end of the day, the outcome. I don't know. I grew up with ELP. In schools and this special program where you learn to think outside the box. And I continue to apply this idea that not every situation can fit inside a box. So let's look at it from different perspectives and say, what is your situation? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the ideal? What is like the 10 out of 10 situation? And then what is the 1 out of 10 situation? How do we plan for everything in between? And so, that's
well, and to your point, Nathan and Hunter, this, we can't solve everybody's questions, but we know we're trying to empower them to know how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
To an attorney, who should I meet with? Get people thinking. Talk to your spouse. Talk to your significant other. We have a special needs child. We got to think about how we want to take care of him or her after. Hunter, as we kind of wrap everything up, what would be some kind of last minute advice? Some advice that you give to our listeners as they're talking to their family members, as they're putting together these trusts, as they're kind of thinking about their estate planning. Again, I love how you mentioned you don't have to be a billionaire to do this. Anybody can do this. Everybody probably should. What's some last minute advice or some advice you would give our listeners?
I went to lunch with a wealth management advisor about a month ago. And wealth management advisor said, Hunter, I have these clients and none of them will listen to me. And they keep asking me, when should I do my planning? And I sat there for a second and I thought about it. And my response to him ended up being, I would do planning if I had a minor child or a special needs child and the day before I die. And my advice to anybody would be, today's a great day to start. Just like anything, if you feel like you're overweight, the best time to start a diet is today. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you need to grow muscle, the best time to start is today. And so many people hesitate with, where do I go or what do I do? And that's where I think, going back to one of the statements I made, talk to people, reach out within your community. I have so much respect for what you guys have done with the Polaris Academy and this bringing people together, because you realize how fast there is community. There are people just like us. There are people that have these same needs, and just talking about it makes you realize, oh, you need this too, or hey, you had this experience, you went and met with this person. And so my advice to anybody listening would be, talk, reach out to a friend, find out if they've done it, and do it together. If that person hasn't, a lot of firms, if you called me and said, hey, there's 3 of us coming in today to do it, you're going to get a discount. It's a wholesale deal, right? Like you're going to,
there you go.
You're going to bring in and generate revenue.
Did we just announce a podcast special?
I think we just
did. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of small firms that aren't restricted to like these, the big budgets and the big cuts. And we want to help real people, and we want to find out what your needs are. So start now, start today, start planning. And whether that's starting with a Google search on some of the stuff we've talked about today, or whether that's looking up reviews of firms in your area, or whether that's reaching out to your family and friends that are in the same situation as you to see, have you done anything? And let's go do it together, because sometimes there's power in, what numbers, if you will.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful advice. Like I said, the best time to start a diet is today. The best time to start building muscle is today. Best time to start thinking about, how to plan for the future of your child is today. So,
and I love that the vehicle is called the trust, because that's the question, who can I trust? And if we've accomplished nothing else today, I think we can say there's somebody that we can trust, and that's a start. And so we appreciate all you bring to it, appreciate how you approach it, and we just hope this has been a resource for our families and our community.
Yes, it is. Hunter, thank you so much for being here.
I was tickled to get the invite, so thanks for having me.
Well, you're a wealth of information. We'll make sure we put your information out for our podcast. Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. We want to do a big shout out to our producer, Jesse. Thank you so much for all that you do.
He makes us sound good.
He does. Thank you, everyone, for making us part of your day. Now let's go do some good.